Good evening and thank you very much. This is Family Matters. My name is Edward Kabasa. I hope you had yourself a very wonderful day today. Tonight on the program, we are talking about blended families. This is a family where one or both parents have been married before and now they are coming together, each one having a child. And of course, it can happen both ways. One can be having a child, the other one cannot be having a child, or both can be having children. And when they get together, of course, these are two families, two different parenting styles coming together, what is born out of it. And statistics from other countries, Kenya, we don't have a lot of statistics, but from other countries, the rate of divorce in these particular families are very high. In studio tonight, I am joined by Jackie Keya. She has a story to tell as well, of course, coming from or being in a blended family. She will tell us about her story and, of course, what she knows. And she has been involved in these matters for a very long time. And Pastor Danston Mutwanthei, I spent the whole day learning to pronounce it. Yes.
I really appreciate it. I was just sharing with other people massacre my name.
Yes, the last time you were here, it was terrible for me.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't pronounce it.
No offense taken.
Thank you very much for coming after such a long time.
Yeah.
Jackie,
yes,
you are in a blended family.
yes.
How did it start?
Just like any other relationship, the only difference is that they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we get into blended families like any other relationship. We meet, we fall in love, but now we have kids in the picture.
Okay.
In my case, I met my husband who had 2 kids from a previous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So we had our courting period, and after which we got married and formed our blended family.
You never had a child when you were coming in?
Yes, I didn't have a child.
How long ago was this?
Last 17, 18 years.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
And how has it been, considering the stories that I've been reading about blended families, that not so many of them do so well?
Actually, life in blended family is different.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes blended families maybe look like their life is, they don't make it, though I know quite a number that make it, is because of the complexities and the difference that blended families bring.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamics are different than the ordinary nuclear family where it's dad, mom, and their bio kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenging, it can be lonely, and because the society has a lot of negative stigma and negative stereotype to blended families, especially if you're a stepmom or you're a stepchild. Immediately, others think if you're a stepchild, then you must be suffering. Mm-hmm. There's somebody really mistreating you. If you're a stepmom, then you are actually evil or wicked. But that is not how it should be.
Because over the last few years,
Yeah.
the number of blended families have risen.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean that there's a lot of divorce happening? The pastor will explain to us whether or not the Bible, sets out the threshold for divorce. But why do you think it's on the rise? Are people getting into wrong marriages and then later on deciding that this is not for me?
Actually, what I tell people, you are a potential blended family candidate.
Okay.
Everyone is a potential blended family candidate. Blended families are formed through death of a spouse,
Mm-hmm.
yes, divorce, early pregnancies, and this guy just goes missing. Last year we had a lot of, we were complaining about the class 8 kids who had got pregnant, and there were so many students who were pregnant.
Yes.
They gave birth, their life is not over. They will go back to school, they will go and search for life still, and they will get married. That on its own is a blended family. So the reasons for blended families are so many. Yes, today if you go to court, there's a lot of divorce going on. Today as we sit here, there's a single girl, a girl in school getting pregnant, and they may have to take care of the baby. As we sit here, there's somebody, as you read in the news, there was an accident. There's somebody who has lost a husband. There's somebody who has lost a wife. So blended families are here to stay.
Wow.
And are going to increase.
Pastor, why are we having so many divorces in the country? I know that we are going to connect it to blended families, but before you have a blended family, either there's death, there's a divorce, or there is early pregnancy. But the rate of divorce in Kenya has gone up.
First, I remember when I was growing up, there were all these songs about Mama Wakambo. So I like what she said. Like, if you're a stepmother or stepfather, there's already a stigma. If you're a stepchild, it's worse. Like, you have to work around consequences of adults that you really didn't have a lot to say. But you remember I gave you my book?
I did.
Yeah. And in the book, I share about the differences, the metamorphosis in terms of relationship and the narrative around relationships.
Yeah.
Ever since relationships became about love, we have had a rise in terms of divorce. Before, relationships were more about purpose. And I shared about matters to do with arranged marriages. And there are statistics actually done by Harvard on the same, where they have discovered that marriages that are arranged have greater success, actually have very low divorce rate because of a couple of things that are asked in terms of who's the right person. Like India, where we have most of the marriages are arranged. So we have particular families that are known for a particular trade. So you have like Patels in education or something like that. So they rarely marry away from that particular core trade of the family. And because of that, it becomes easier when people get married, they can go about the business of life together. But now we have a society where we moved from that type of marriages to romantic relationships, where people would marry someone because that person makes them feel happy. So now the narrative of the relationship changed. That's why after the wedding, you see happily ever after. And it is not happily ever after for a very long period of time, because within a few years, everybody wakes up. It says dating is a dream. Marriage is the alarm clock. And so because of that particular metamorphosis, we have had a lot of challenges, because now people are getting into relationships with people who make them happy, not people who make them happen. So you find that there is a lot of pressure for you to perform, you know. And because of that particular pressure, people are moving from one relationship to another. So if that person doesn't make them happy, they find somebody else who makes them happier. They move from this happy situation to a happier situation. So you find that there is this narrative where nowadays when people want to divorce, they say, you know, I'm no longer happy in this marriage. That's what they say. But you can imagine my parents have been married for a long period of time. Their marriage is very solid, incidentally. I believe my passion for marriage comes from my parents, primarily. And when I look at them, you know, they're just going about life normally. There's not so much excesses in terms of romance and things like that, but their marriage is extremely solid. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out, because we have a tendency of adopting ideologies without checking at the consequences. Most of the people who sell romance as the optimum idea of love have no divorces, have no marriages to show. Most of the divorces end up in 50%, second marriages 60%, third marriages 70%. So it seems as though there is a culture, we have adopted a culture that the consequences thereof is actually divorce. So I think we need to readdress the situation. But you know, the issue is, we don't have a lot of mentors nowadays. She's a mentor. Yeah, she's a mentor, but there are not so many people who are speaking and helping people make the right choices where relationships are concerned. And I believe right now, the parents, you know, and church leaders need to come on the forefront and help people know how to choose the right person. I've been married for about 4 years now, and I can tell you, my marriage has no drama. Okay, I was told there would be drama, but I've been waiting for the drama.
Was it arranged?
It was not arranged.
You're a fan of arranged marriages.
Yeah, it was not arranged. But the one thing that happened is, I married based on my purpose. Okay. Yes. Because I'm a pastor. Being a pastor it can go either way. My best friend loved a particular girl, and then a child walked close to him, and the child called him pastor. And that girl who he was interested in, never received a phone call from him again. So when you're a pastor, it can go either way. But I had learned about my purpose. I sought a lot of advice from people who are older than me. I actually made up my mind that on the issue about marriage, because it's not a light decision to make, I'm going to get a lot of counsel from people who are older. And because of that, I was able to make a very solid decision where matters to do with my marriage is concerned. And I have not seen drama yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back. We'll come back and talk about the threshold that the Bible sets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know there is something about cheating. If you find your partner engaging in adultery, of course, I believe that the Bible allows you to take some steps. I don't know whether divorce is anywhere close to it, but two families coming together, two different parenting styles. You have children, your husband has children as well. Is it always obvious that all these threads are going to blend together, or are those strands that are not going to come together?
First of all, the word blended is misleading. So it's a step family. But because of the negative stereotype associated with step families, that is why the word blended is used. So to just minimize the stigma and the stereotypes that comes with it. When we say blended, why I'm saying it's misleading because, as you're asking, is will they gel and blend? Like I put a mango and I put an orange and I make a smoothie, and we will not see where the mango and the banana separate. They will all become one. That is maybe a good desire, but it's unrealistic. Because even us in our families that we come from, the ones that we come from where it was Baba, Mama, na Sisi, there are also things that we did not blend in everything. We have siblings that we don't hate each other, but I know that if I want such and such a thing, I'll call my brother so and so. But if I want this one, I'll call my sister so and so. It's not like this. So in blended families, we are not looking for, I think blended families fail because we are looking for, my family should look like the ordinary nuclear family. When you start like that, you've started on a wrong note.
You should always know that it is going to be different.
No, my family, it's different.
Yes.
My family is different. My structure is different. Structure defines function, the roles.
Yeah.
You cannot take a square peg and force it in a circle, in a circular thing.
Yeah.
You look for a square peg and then it will fit. So people in step families need to know that my dynamics, my family dynamics are different. The role of a step parent, as much as I do everything as a mother, but I'm a stepmother. But in the family setting, there are no roles at all. I'll just play small motherhood. I'll do almost all things that a mother does. But in my mind, you should still know that you are a stepmother and there are other challenges that will come because you're a stepmother. That does not mean that you should not do your role as a step parent.
How do you approach discipline? Because there's always that thing about you're treating me differently because you did not give birth to me.
Yeah.
Or you're treating her differently because you gave birth to her. Yeah. How do you approach that?
Discipline is a challenge in step families. First of all, because if we are both the bio parents as a couple, if I see you disciplining the child, I give you benefit of doubt. So there's a lot of grace in my heart that I know you will not hurt the child because it's ours.
Yeah.
However, in step families, that could be different. So the first thing I tell the people that come to see me, the first thing is discipline is not punishment. Discipline without a relationship is perceived as punishment. Discipline is guiding, and it is not, discipline does not mean here that it's corporal punishment. Discipline can even be guiding the child, telling them not to do. Discipline is guidance. But when we say discipline, most of the time we think it's corporal. So this is not even corporal punishment. For discipline to work, you have to have a relationship. The bio parents, God has been so good to us that even before we meet these children, we start bonding with them here to 9 months. And then we give birth to these kids. You know, the bonding started before even we received them. Yeah. So I come in as a step parent. Remember, there was no that 9 months I didn't have any bond with this child. So the first thing is you have to connect before you correct. A step parent has to connect before you correct. So the discipline, the bigger part of the discipline is on the bio parent. He can be a bad cop, and the child will not feel like they're being mistreated. That does not mean that the step parent is a doormat. I can be there and start creating relationships with them. We set the basic rules of the house with the children. If children are big enough, we sit down with the children and we tell them, these are the rules of the house. Are there any rules you want to incorporate? You see, if the children are also involved in incorporating these rules, they know they are ours. They're not the rules that the step parent came with. These ones are ours.
Which do you think is easier? Getting married when the children are old enough, 18 years and above, and they're probably moved out, or when the children are young?
I don't think any is easier. Yeah. Yeah. All marital structures are hard work. Yeah. There's nothing that comes easy. And I love what she has said, because I think for me, on a forum like this, my thought would be, first and foremost, the two parents, the new spouses, they need to develop a very strong marriage. That's the first thing. Because what happens is, when people get married, everybody wants to, somehow, because of our selfish nature, we want to make sure that we are holding front for our children. But the reality of the matter is this: it takes, the two of you must come to a place where you build a very strong marriage, so that through the observation of the children, just by watching the way you behave and things like that, they can have the peace and the confidence to allow the other spouse who seems to be a stranger to come close to them, you know. Then after that, as she has said, it is important for the parent who is the primary parent to be the one who disciplines, while the other one learns how to create a relationship with this particular child. And you'll be able to know when the relationship gets into a place where you can also now get in terms of correcting that particular child. Because if you do it early, you're going to break things that are not supposed to be broken. Yeah. So it is important for the parent who's coming in, and it's important for you to create that relationship with that particular child and to understand the different dynamics. So for example, for a child who's below 10 years, it's much more easier. Those children only want attention, you know. So it's much more easier for you to click with them. If you take them out, buy for them pizza, things like that, just spend a lot of time with them, it will be much more easier for them to accept you. They are much more accepting. But when you get to the teenagers now, that's a whole new different ballgame. Once you get past 10 to 14, that's a drama. First, they are trying to discover themselves. So they are creating their own independent identity. And they feel like you are an intruder into that. So it is important for you to be also very careful in the way you relate with teens, preteens and teens, because if you move too quickly, then they will end up creating ultimatums. There will be a tug of war between you and the mother, and they want the mother to make a decision, either for them or for you, you know. So it is important for you as a parent to understand, once you bring in teenagers, take some time. And teenagers are amazing, you know. A teenager might behave as though they are not listening to you. But truth of the matter is that everything that they are saying, they are much more sensitive to words of affirmation than even the small ones. So it is important for you to create that particular relationship where you encourage them, you embrace them, you know. Talk to them kindly. Even if they are behaving as though they are not hearing you out, but create a relationship with them. They need a lot of love and affection. Once it gets to 18, now that's different. Yeah.
So, Jackie, let's take a case where there's no debt involved. you divorced, and your present husband is also coming from a divorce. There is that thing about these children wanting to keep in touch with their biological mother or father. How do you handle that? Because in that family, you also have your set of rules that you are not supposed to be outside from probably 6 p.m. and that child needs to spend time with the father or the biological mother.
Okay. As I said, life in step families, what is normal for step families might not be normal for other families, because we make our normal so that we can have functional, at the end of the day, we want to bring up kids who are balanced, kids who are responsible, kids who are emotionally healthy. Your child will meet my child somewhere and they might get married. I need to have raised a man or a woman who is a good human being. So one of the things that we should know is that as people in step family or as members of step families, one of the things that is important is we have ex-husbands, ex-wives, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, but there's no ex-parent, there's no ex-child. A parent is a parent is a parent. So a bio parent who still wants to be involved with their child should be given the chance to still see their child. That is why there are custodies. There are children who go to their bio moms at certain period and come back to their bio dads at certain periods. And kids who are allowed to have more communication and also just have an interaction, a relationship with their bio parents, even after a divorce, adapt faster to life, to the step families, because remember, both of these two people are very important in their lives. So yes, our kids can still, when you're co-parenting with your ex, you can still co-parent with your ex and take care of this child and make sure that whatever you do in your individual homes is for the benefit of this child.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 stepchildren. I have 2 bio children. I have an orphan girl who also calls me a mother. So I have 5 children. In fact, right now, I don't call them step, bio. I have 5 kids. I'm just saying the step and bio for the show. But I am a mother of 5.
Okay.
Yes.
And the 2, their mother, is the mother still around?
Yes.
So how often do they meet the mother?
They would meet their mother whenever they wanted, especially when they were in school. They do school, weekends, holidays, they would still see their mother. And right now, they're older kids. Remember, it's 18 years. So these are adults. Right now, they can communicate anytime they want. They can have a relationship and build any bonds that they want. That is very important to them. I wouldn't want, also, if I put myself in the other side, I would still want a relationship with my child. So allow your children to have a relationship with their parents.
And the father is, I know that the divorce has already happened, but is the dad in the life of the mother as well in terms of co-parenting, because they won't stop being parents?
Right now, I don't think there's any co-parenting, any conversations that is there. However, conversations around the kids, wellness of these kids, they will converse. That they will converse. If today they will want to get married, there will be that conversation that our children now want to do ABCD. There's this major milestone in their lives that they are going to do. So that is communication they will have around the children.
All right.
Yes.
Pastor.
I understand the complexity. I understand what you're asking.
It is complex.
Yeah, because if the first parents are too close, then it can create a problem with the step family. But also, if they are too separated, it can create an issue for the children. So there has to be a balance, and I'm happy that she was able to balance it out very well. Yeah.
It looks like for you it doesn't make sense because you're still looking at it from the point of the ordinary nuclear family.
Yeah.
You're not looking at it from this is our family and how do we make it work.
Yeah.
A farmer in Kitale, the way they will farm, and a farmer in Turkana, the things that they will do are totally different because the conditions and the structure, the dynamics of that farmer are different and the dynamics of this farmer are different. But at the end of the day, we want to reap. So I cannot go to Turkana and start farming and digging the season of Kitale and waiting that I will weed somebody of Kitale. Step families are different. So the rules and the ball game is different.
Okay. Yeah. So, Pastor, before, I know I told you that probably the Bible sets the threshold. If you can explain it to us, for that divorce to happen and what needs to happen before you move into another relationship altogether. Yeah.
Now, I've noticed you're using the word divorce a lot, but in the Kenyan context, actually most of the children are from single parents. Most of the blended families, a big chunk of them are coming from a place where they had a child out of wedlock, and then now they have found somebody who loves them, and it's that the wisdom to bring in the child and to set up the child in such a way that the child takes the position of the firstborn, and then you talk to either the father or the mother to be able to balance it out. In Kenya, there are very few cases where it's an issue about divorce. I know now it's kind of on the rise, but the big number of blended families are coming from a single background. Of course, there are particular issues about divorce that the Bible talks about. Number one, the Bible doesn't tolerate violence against a spouse. Yeah, God hates violence. And nowadays, pastors are also very careful because initially we would know somebody is being beaten up, but there would be no death cases. But nowadays, you know, there was a time, I think 2 months ago, every day on the news, a man had killed his wife or the wife had killed, you know, and because of that, we are very cautious. If we notice that there is violence that is going on, we have to bring in the law, we have to bring in the police to get the family out, you know. So, and then we talk to those people. There are other dynamics around as to why people don't leave violent relationships. So we have to take them through that particular therapy. Then there is the issue about incompatibility in matters to do with spirituality, which is also the other reason as to why we're having a lot of challenges now. When I was growing up, we had a priest called Father Masharia. He was a very close family friend. And he told me something that was interesting. He said, there's an age where he's having challenges with marriages because somebody was in one denomination, then got married to another denomination, and now they're having a conflict of where to take their children to Sunday school. Because one group is praying in tongues, the other one wants to pray in rosary. So there's that particular challenge, and it might seem as though it's not important during the time for courtship. But let me tell you, after marriage, only two things really remain. The vision that you have for the family, that becomes a driving force, and the faith that is subscribed by that particular family. And one of the challenges is if you have so much incompatibility in terms of what you believe in, it becomes difficult for you to be able to create a family legacy. Yeah. Because all family legacy, if you look at the Indians, you look at the Muslims, they are able to move wealth from one generation to another, but it's because they have made it abundantly clear what they believe in and who they believe in. So the issue about spirituality, and that's why you find in 1 Corinthians chapter number 7, it says if a non-believing spouse wants to leave, then the believing spouse is under no obligation, and actually is not even bound by biblical law to keep that particular person. But if the non-believing spouse does not want to leave, then you can't leave. Yeah. So it's in a place where if you are a believer and the other person is not a believer, if the non-believer does not want to leave, the Bible tells you you can't do anything about it. But if the person who doesn't believe wants to walk away from the marriage, the Bible says you're free. You can walk away. The last one, which is the one which is known, but it rarely happens, is where people divorce because of an affair. Most marriages can survive an affair. What they can't survive is being treated badly. Once the dignity of an individual has been assaulted for a long period of time, somebody won't stay there, even no matter how much faithfulness is displayed in that particular relationship. It is how somebody feels. At the long run, how does the person feel when they are around you? If the person feels as though they are trash, sooner than later they will leave. And this is something which I was told by a friend of mine who's a lawyer. He told me, Danston, these issues about affairs, people sort them out. But the issue about being mistreated, when a woman standing in a society, you know, is treated badly by a husband, she will pack and she will leave and she will never come back again. And there is nothing you can do to keep her in the house. So there are those particular dynamics that the Bible allows. Yeah.
And you have been engaged in some social aspect of this, speaking to parents who are in blended family. Let's call it blended for now.
It's okay.
What's that aspect of blended families that always arise?
The challenges that always come in blended families.
Okay.
That's what you're asking?
Yes. Like, you know, psychiatrists or counseling psychologists, they have issues that they deal with. They can say that 50% of my clients have, for example, depression, and probably 20% have marriage problems, and 10% probably have other issues to deal with. But since you've been engaged in such conversations for long, what can you say is that aspect that always comes out, like if a couple comes or if it's a single person that comes, of either father or mother, that one issue that is always, you know, coming out?
Okay, I think what I've realized, it's not understanding that structure defines function. So our structure is different. It's not understanding that the difference in the family, the difference in the dynamics, in the makeup of a step family is what directs how we can make our step family better. So we come into step families, but we want, and because of the negative stereotypes and the accepted social standard of family, that even you are socialized and you are brought up knowing that step families are bad. You know this socialization. You're in it, but you are also socialized like the society is looking at you. So we really want to make our families right, and we think that the only way we can make our families right is if they function like my neighbors, where my neighbors is not a step family. My neighbor's family is an ordinary nuclear family with both parents and with their kids. So most of the issues and the struggles and the challenges that people in step families face is because we are trying to right, let me call it right, or to be socially acceptable. So we want to make this family function just the way the other family is. Because I saw what motherhood is, and I saw it from my mother, who was my biological mother, I think I will mother also the same way as a stepmother. However, you might have some aspects same, but some aspects may not be same. A dad who is a stepfather knows that I saw my father who was the disciplinarian in the home. My dad was da-da-da-da-da. So he gets into a step family as a stepfather and expects that he will also be the disciplinarian from day one. So most of the issues that we get in step families is because we are trying to make them work as the other families. And that is why when you meet us, and most of us and most stepmoms will say, you know, my stepkids love me, just, you might not know that they are my stepkids. We put that underlying fact because we think when it is not known, then I have done a good job. But you can proudly be a stepmom and know you're a stepmom and create a great, significant relationship with your children and enjoy a good marriage and give your children a foundation and memories of their childhood that they will not be going for counseling for in their adulthood.
Right. And how important is it, Pastor, to be aware of the challenges so that you know that if this comes along, this is how I'm going to deal with it, and those challenges which are so difficult that they require multiple sources of help?
As I have always said, for me, I don't think love is the foundation of a relationship. I think wisdom is the foundation of a relationship. And the more complex the relationship is, the more wisdom you need to acquire. And I'm happy that Mrs. Keya here has a lot of wisdom in terms of blended families, because those things, they are problems because they become a lot of problems when you have very little knowledge, you know, like what she has shared about the stepfather thinking that I'm coming in to become a disciplinarian. He needs to be taught about the art of loving, because loving is an art. There is an art around it, you know. So there would be those particular dynamics where with proper guidance, he or she would be able to know, when do I get to that particular place where I can take that particular role. So personally, I think if there is any single person who has a child, or you're divorced and you're looking for to get back into family life, it is important for you to acquire as much information as possible in regard to this particular subject matter. And nowadays we are digital, so you can Google as much as possible. Then the other thing is, if things are not still very, very clear, you know, talk to a marriage therapist, talk to a counselor, talk to a lawyer who specializes in family law, you know. So there is a lot of information, and if you have a lot of information, you will have very little problems. But if you have very little problems, very little knowledge, you'll have a lot of problems. So that you can be able to know, you know. Like for example, when you're getting into a relationship, like if a single mother has a daughter, you know, I would tell that girl to be very careful about who is a stepdad, because of the situations that are there. As a pastor, I believe in the best, but let me tell you, I'm also very careful about what can happen. So it is important for the person to be taught what are the dynamics, and when your daughter is blending with a stepfather, what are the things that girls are uncomfortable with, so that the stepdad can be able to know there is a way to blend in. There is a way to have a relationship with a girl who's not yours biologically. And that information is available. And if someone is available to learn and they are patient enough to be able to execute it, before long, the family will just go back into normal. And that's why she's saying, sometimes in particular families which are very good at it, you wouldn't know. Yeah, you wouldn't know.
Do you teach such?
Yes, I do. I teach such. I'm glad Pastor is here. I think the church needs to step up.
Yeah.
Because I think the society lives like blended families are not there.
Yeah.
Yet everywhere you turn, you know a blended family, you know a blended family. I know if you ask anyone and they'll tell you, yes, I know a blended family. So even in the premarital counseling that churches do, I went for premarital counseling in church. But it was like we were all starting afresh. Yes. So the premarital counseling that we are given in church, it's like we are all single. We are starting on a clean slate. So I offer premarital counseling topics on blended families. I know these topics in church are important because we also just have a marriage that we need to have skills of our marriages are not different. We just need skills that we get from also the church and premarital classes. But I cover topics on how to live in step families as a couple. I have a program for stepmoms. I call it Stepmom Wisdom. So we train stepmoms on how the challenges that they will get, the attitudes they need, the mindset shifts that they need to make, and how to make it successful. And I also do just one-on-one coaching for people in blended families. Right. Yes.
And have you come across cases where someone is in a marriage, a blended family, but one of the spouses has refused to take in children?
I have met such a couple, but they had not gotten into the family.
Okay.
But that was one of the things that they were struggling. This man was just having a problem with having this lady's son come to stay with them. And in his culture, a son is very significant. He couldn't imagine that the person who will be looking like his first son is not his biological son. So this is where ladies go around and start leaving their children in Oshago.
Yeah.
This is where we start lying about kids. And then we get married, and then after 2 years, now we tell you, you know that child we always see when you go home. Yeah. That child is actually mine. For me, my advice is, if somebody cannot accept you as a package, please let them go. And I also thank God for such a person, for the honesty, for realizing their threshold, realizing that, okay, me, I can't do another person's child. That is a better person than that person who pretends and gets into marriage. And then in the marriage, you have had now kids of your own. Your child is being mistreated. And this guy now, or this woman now, does not want your child. Now that is more complicated. And as much as we are saying divorce is on the rise, divorce is not easy. Even leaving a bad man is not easy.
It's not easy.
Or leaving a bad woman is not easy. So at this stage, when you're not yet married, and you can see this red flag, that your child is going to suffer, your child is not going to get acceptance, the best thing to do is to just quit the relationship. Because one of the things that you should know now as a single parent is that you come as a package. One of the things that a step parent to be should know is that you choose your stepchildren. That day that guy comes and talks to you and tells you, you know, I have 2, 3 kids, and you say, yes, I still see you. You've not just chosen the man, you chose the kids. So if this guy is not choosing the kids, I think it would be unfair for any mom or dad to now allow their children to live with rejection. I am a counselor, I'm a psychologist, and rejection is tough, especially a child who is raised by rejection, and they know that me, I'm in Shags, but I have a brother and sister that live in Nairobi, they live well, but me, I'm with my grandma. That child, even in adulthood, issues of rejection will still follow them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get back to you, and then you'll tell our viewers how they can reach you. And Pastor, finally, how should couples approach their conflict? Like before you file for that divorce, before you call it quits, in a case where violence is not involved, should it always be that divorce is not an option? I know Will Smith and the wife always say that divorce is not an option, but I know that that's not the case everywhere. But how should you approach it when you're on the brink?
There are a couple of things that when you look at marriage, marriage has the 2 people in it. It has church, it has family, it has extended family. It's a very mixed up institution. And one of the things that I advise is, especially when you're single, don't just run into somebody's house. Let them come and see your parents. It creates a sense of accountability. And there is honor in going to somebody's house to go and ask for their daughter's hand in marriage. And that protects people from a lot of issues. Because later on, when there's a problem, the same group of elders who are around there are able to come in and sort it out, you know. Also within the church structure, we have, in our church we have a structure which deals with relationships, whether singles or dating or things like that. So it is important for you first to seek help, because some of the things that people fight about, and I'm sorry to say this, sometimes we can be adults, but we can become very petty. We can become very petty about some things, and you would wonder, but this thing can be sorted out in one way or another. So what we do when we discover that something is very petty, but it has issues, we have to go back again into their upbringing. Because now we discover this might be something to do with childhood issues. Maybe the soul of a person was fractured when they were very, very young, you know. And then now you go back to that and solve it. Even issues about matters to do with divorce. People who have come from very dysfunctional families have that thing at the back of their mind. It's like, you know, if I get into this thing, probably it won't work, you know. And they come in 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're just hoping if they see danger anywhere, they will bolt out. And so you find that there are those particular, we call them generational patterns, where you find that there's like a pattern that is following a particular marriage. So once we have been able to talk someone through that, their fears, their insecurities, you discover there's actually no problem. People don't get into marriage with the hopes of breaking up. Yeah, if you can give them help and show them, by the way, you can solve this thing this way, most of them stay. I've done counseling on people who have survived chronic cheating. And the marriages right now are much stronger than they were there before, because you went and dealt with very deep underlying issues that have never been discussed about. And I think I'm so happy with what Ms. Keya and other pastors are doing right now. We really need to be very vocal about the institution of marriage and just tell people, you know, don't get in blindly. And also when you get in, don't suffer quietly. If there's something that is going on, show up and tell us this and this and this is going on. You will be shocked. Yeah. And then you can't shock us incidentally. Like for her, you see, you have asked her a question about a parent who didn't want to have a child. People who do counseling are like police and lawyers, and you know, we have seen it all, we have had it all. It would be very creative for you to shock us with any of your story. So just show up. It might look big because you have not talked about it, but just show up and talk to us. Okay. You would be amazed that those things that you're thinking that they are huge, it's nothing much. Yeah, it can be solved.
All right. Yeah. Jackie, how can someone reach you?
We are on Facebook, the Blended Family Network, where I post tips and just ways of building a healthy and emotionally balanced step family unit. And also you can call us on 0726 460 245.
All right.
Yes.
Twitter?
Twitter, I'm not very good at it, but I'm there silent.
Okay.
Maybe Instagram, Jackie Keya.
All right. Jackie, Pastor Danston, thank you very much for coming on the program. And of course, I know that, like you said, we need to talk about marriage as an institution, and blended families. They're different. They're not like the usual ones. But of course, it is something that not so many people are willing to engage. Remember when I was inviting you on the program, the first thing you told me is that this is something that not so many people are willing to talk about. But I hope that going forward, we'll see people coming out talking about it, so that those problems are shared and the successes are shared as well. And that does it for us for this edition of Family Matters. My name is Edward Kabasa. Thank you very much for watching. Have yourself a very wonderful week ahead.